Maya Rodriguez wiped the grease from her hands with an old rag as she stepped back from the pickup truck. The engine hummed quietly in the dim light of her garage. To anyone watching, she had just finished a normal tune-up on a normal vehicle. The truck looked like any other Ford that rolled through Cedar Falls, Montana. Scratched paint, dented bumper, mud caked on the tires from the back roads. Nothing special about it at all. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 11:30 at night. The town had been asleep for hours. Main Street was empty except for the yellow glow of street lamps and the occasional prowling cat. Cedar Falls was the kind of place where people went to bed early and minded their own business. Population 3,200, give or take a few. Everyone knew everyone else, but they respected privacy. That was exactly why Maya had chosen this place 5 years ago. She walked to the front of the garage and pulled down the metal door, making sure the lock clicked into place. The sound echoed in the quiet night. Then she returned to the truck and opened the hood again. But this time, instead of checking the oil or adjusting the belts, she pressed her thumb against what looked like a normal bolt on the engine block. A soft blue light pulsed once and a hidden panel slid open with barely a whisper. Inside the panel, circuits glowed with an otherworldly light. The technology was unlike anything that should exist in a small-town garage. Crystalline components pulsed with energy, connected by wires that seemed to bend light around them. Maya ran her fingers along the alien machinery, checking connections and monitoring energy levels on a display that showed symbols no human language had ever used. This was her real work. The brake jobs and oil changes were just a cover. Maya Rodriguez was not really a simple mechanic who had drifted into Cedar Falls looking for a quiet life. She was former Major Maya Rodriguez, once the head of the military's most classified research division. The world thought she had died in a facility explosion 3 years ago. The explosion had been her own doing. A carefully planned cover for the theft of the most dangerous technology humanity had ever encountered. The truck was one of 12 vehicles she had modified over the past 5 years. Each one looked completely normal on the outside. Underneath, they contained reverse-engineered alien technology that she had stolen from the government. Technology that could change everything about how humans understood physics, energy, and space itself. Technology that the government was planning to use for all the wrong reasons. Maya closed the hidden panel and lowered the hood. She had learned to work fast and quiet. The townspeople knew she sometimes worked late, but they had no idea what she was really doing. As far as they knew, she was just a woman who was good with engines and kept to herself. She fixed their cars, charged fair prices, and never caused trouble. In return, they left her alone. She walked to the back of the garage where a coffee pot sat on a small table next to a radio. The coffee was old and bitter, but it kept her alert during the long nights. She poured herself a cup and turned on the radio, keeping the volume low. Static filled the air as she searched for a clear station. Finally, she found a late-night talk show from Billings. The host was discussing crop circles and government conspiracies. If only he knew how close to the truth he really was. Maya had grown up in El Paso, the daughter of a mechanic and a nurse. She had always been good with her hands, good at figuring out how things worked. The military had noticed her talents early. Engineering school, officer training, then assignment to increasingly classified projects. By the time she was 30, she was working on technology that officially did not exist. The alien technology had been recovered from crash sites over the past 20 years. Most people believed the government when they said such things were weather balloons or experimental aircraft. Maya had seen the truth. The crashed ships, the strange materials, the survivors. The government had been in contact with alien species for decades. Some of those contacts had been peaceful, others had not. The species that had provided the technology in her garage called themselves the Kethvar. They had come to Earth not as conquerors, but as refugees. They were fleeing from something worse, something that had destroyed their homeworlds. In their desperation, they had made deals with human governments. Technology in exchange for sanctuary. The problem was that the Kethvar had not told the whole truth about what they were running from. Maya had discovered the real threat buried in the alien data files. The Kethvar were not the apex predators of the galaxy. They were prey, just like humanity was about to become. The thing they were running from was still coming, following their trail across the stars. When it arrived, it would consume everything. The Kethvar technology was not a gift. It was bait. She had tried to warn her superiors. They had called her paranoid and ordered her to continue her research. So she had continued, but not in the way they expected. She had learned everything she could about the alien technology, then arranged for her own death and disappeared. The explosion at the facility had destroyed most of the research, but she had already copied the important parts. Now she lived in Cedar Falls, building defenses that no one would ever see coming. The modified vehicles were just the beginning. She had installed hidden systems throughout the town. Energy collectors disguised as cell phone towers, sensor arrays built into the framework of the old grain elevator, defensive shields hidden in the basement of the hardware store, which was owned by her unwitting partner, Pete Jackson. Pete was 72 years old and had lived in Cedar Falls his entire life. He had no idea that his basement contained enough firepower to level a city block. As far as he knew, Maya just rented storage space for spare parts. He liked her because she always paid on time and helped him fix things around the store. Pete had been a Navy engineer during the Cold War, though he kept that part of his past to himself. Maya suspected he knew more than he let on, but they both respected each other's privacy. The radio crackled with static, then cleared as the talk show host introduced his next caller. Maya listened absently as she reviewed the data on her handheld scanner. The energy readings from the truck were stable. All systems were functioning within normal parameters. Normal, of course, being relative when dealing with technology that could bend space and time. She had chosen Cedar Falls for more than just its isolation. The town sat on a natural convergence point where magnetic fields intersected in unusual ways. The local geology amplified certain types of energy transmission. The Kethvar technology worked better here than it would almost anywhere else on Earth. The aliens probably had no idea such places existed. They had been running for so long they had forgotten how to really look at a planet. Maya finished her coffee and began shutting down the garage for the night. Tomorrow would bring the usual customers with the usual problems. Mrs. Chen's station wagon that burned oil, Deputy Murphy's patrol car that needed new brake pads. The normal routine that kept her cover intact while she prepared for a war that most of humanity did not even know was coming. She locked the garage and walked to her small apartment above the auto parts store next door. The stairs creaked under her feet. Her apartment was simple. A bed, a kitchen table, a television that she rarely watched. No personal photos, no mementos from her old life. Maya Rodriguez, the mechanic, had no past worth remembering. But late at night, when the town was quiet and she was alone with her thoughts, she sometimes wondered if she was preparing for the right war. The technology she had stolen could save humanity, but it could also destroy it. She was gambling everything on her ability to use it better than the people she had taken it from. So far, she was winning that gamble, but she knew that eventually, someone would come looking for what she had stolen. When that day came, Cedar Falls would either become humanity's greatest victory or its final battlefield. The first black SUV rolled into Cedar Falls just as the sun painted the eastern sky orange. Maya was already in her garage, having arrived before dawn as she always did. She heard the unfamiliar engine sound through the thin walls and felt her stomach tighten. In 5 years, she had never seen a vehicle like that in town. Government plates, tinted windows, and the distinctive hum of a heavily modified engine. Someone had found her. She walked to the small window that faced Main Street and watched as 2 more identical SUVs followed the first. They moved slowly, methodically, like hunters studying their prey. The lead vehicle parked in front of the diner. The second stopped at the gas station. The third continued down the street and disappeared around the corner toward the residential area. Professional surveillance pattern. Maya recognized it from her military training. Inside the garage, hidden sensors began to activate. Maya had built her security system to look like normal garage equipment. A tire pressure gauge that was actually a radio frequency scanner. A battery charger that monitored electromagnetic signatures. An air compressor that tracked movement patterns throughout the town. The readouts told her what she already suspected. These were not ordinary government vehicles. The men and women climbing out of the SUVs carried themselves like soldiers. They wore dark suits that did nothing to hide the weapons beneath their jackets. Earpieces connected them to whatever command structure had sent them. Maya counted 6 agents total, maybe more in the vehicle she could not see. More than enough to handle one small-town mechanic, if that was all they thought she was. Agent Lisa Kane stepped out of the lead SUV and surveyed the town with professional interest. She was in her late 30s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Kane had been tracking electromagnetic anomalies for the past 6 months. The readings had led her team across 3 states before finally converging on this insignificant Montana town. The energy signatures matched technology that had gone missing from a classified facility 3 years ago. Technology that was supposed to have been destroyed in an explosion that killed everyone who knew about it. Maya watched Kane through the window and recognized the type immediately. Career intelligence officer, probably NSA or one of the agencies so classified they did not have public names. The kind of person who followed orders without question and eliminated problems efficiently. Maya had worked with people like Kane before, back when she was Major Rodriguez. Now Kane was hunting her, and they were on opposite sides of a war that Kane probably did not even understand. The diner door chimed as Kane entered, removing her sunglasses and scanning the interior. 3 local men sat at the counter drinking coffee and discussing the weather. They looked up curiously at the stranger. Strangers were rare in Cedar Falls, especially strangers in expensive suits driving government vehicles. "Morning," said Betty Walsh, the diner owner. She had been serving coffee and gossip in Cedar Falls for 25 years. "You folks passing through?" Kane smiled, but the expression never reached her eyes. Something like that. "We're investigating some unusual energy readings in the area. Environmental survey. Nothing to worry about." Betty nodded as if that explanation made perfect sense, but Maya could see the skepticism in her body language. People in small towns developed excellent instincts about strangers who lied. Kane was polished, but she was not good enough to fool someone like Betty. Meanwhile, other agents had begun their work. 2 approached the gas station, showing badges to the owner and asking questions about recent electrical problems or unusual equipment. Another pair knocked on doors in the residential area, claiming to be from the power company. Their questions were carefully designed to sound routine, while gathering information about anything out of the ordinary. Maya activated the hidden communication system she had installed throughout the town. Tiny transmitters disguised as electrical junction boxes allowed her to monitor conversations within a 3-block radius. She listened as Kane questioned the men at the diner about local businesses and unusual activity. The agents were fishing, not sure exactly what they were looking for, but confident they would recognize it when they found it. Pete Jackson arrived at his hardware store across the street and noticed the SUVs immediately. He had not survived 72 years, including a tour in the Navy, by being unobservant. The vehicles were obviously government, and government people in Cedar Falls usually meant trouble for someone. He caught Maya's eye through her garage window and tapped his watch twice, their prearranged signal for potential problems. Maya acknowledged with a subtle nod and began activating defensive protocols. To anyone watching, she was simply preparing to open for business. She started the compressor, turned on the radio, and checked her appointment book. In reality, she was powering up systems that could turn her garage into a fortress if necessary. The compressed air tanks contained more than air. The radio was connected to communication equipment that could reach anywhere on Earth. Her appointment book was actually a tactical computer disguised as a daily planner. The agents spent the morning methodically, working their way through town. Their questions remained vague, but Maya could see the pattern. They were looking for technology that should not exist in a place like Cedar Falls. Energy readings that were too high. Equipment that was too advanced. People who knew too much about things they should not understand. By noon, Kane had visited every business on Main Street except the auto repair garage. Maya knew this was intentional. Save the most likely target for last. After gathering as much information as possible from other sources, let the subject worry and possibly make mistakes. It was a sound strategy, but Maya had been trained by the same people who had trained Kane. When Kane finally entered the garage, Maya was underneath a pickup truck, changing the oil. She slid out on the creeper and stood up, wiping her hands on her coveralls. To Kane, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a working mechanic in a small town, competent but unremarkable. "Help you with something?" Maya asked, her voice carrying just the right amount of rural friendliness mixed with caution about strangers. Kane showed her badge. "Agent Kane, Environmental Protection Agency. We're investigating some unusual electromagnetic readings in the area. Nothing serious, just routine monitoring." Maya nodded and gestured around the garage. "Well, you found the right place for electromagnetics. Got enough equipment in here to light up every scanner in the county. What kind of readings you talking about? It was a good response. Acknowledged the obvious while seeming curious rather than defensive. Kane walked slowly around the garage, noting the various tools and equipment. Her training let her spot potential surveillance devices, but Maya's installations were too well disguised. The agent saw only what Maya wanted her to see. Energy spikes, Kane said, studying a diagnostic computer that was actually running alien software, particularly in the radio frequency range. Have you noticed any unusual interference with your equipment? Maya scratched her chin thoughtfully. Can't say that I have. Though old Pete next door was complaining about his radio acting up last week. Might want to check with him. Kane made a note in her phone. What about your diagnostic equipment? Any strange readings or malfunctions? Nothing out of the ordinary. Of course, half this stuff is older than I am. Hard to tell what's a malfunction and what's just normal wear. It was another good deflection. Make the equipment seem less sophisticated than it actually was while providing a reasonable explanation for any anomalies. Kane continued her inspection, but Maya could see frustration beginning to show. The agent was finding nothing that matched what her instruments had detected from a distance. Mind if I take a look at your electrical system? Kane asked. Sometimes older buildings can create interference patterns. Maya shrugged. Help yourself. Breaker box is right there on the wall. Kane examined the electrical panel, using a handheld scanner to check for unusual energy patterns. The scanner showed normal readings because Maya had built Faraday cages around all her hidden equipment. The alien technology was completely shielded from conventional detection methods. As Kane worked, Maya watched her carefully. The agent was thorough and professional, but she was also following a script. Someone had given her specific instructions about what to look for and how to look for it. That meant Maya was dealing with people who understood at least part of what they were hunting. The question was how much they really knew. Everything looks normal, Kane said finally, closing her scanner. Though I have to say, you keep this place in better shape than most garages I've seen. Maya smiled. Take pride in my work. Can't fix cars properly if you don't maintain your equipment properly. Kane nodded and handed Maya a business card. If you notice anything unusual, give me a call. We'll be in town for a few more days finishing our survey. After Kane left, Maya locked the garage and activated her surveillance system. The agents were regrouping at the motel on the edge of town, setting up what looked like a temporary command post. They were not leaving anytime soon. Maya had passed the first test, but she knew there would be others. Kane was suspicious, even if she could not prove anything yet. Maya climbed the stairs to her apartment and made a secure phone call using equipment hidden in her bedroom closet. Agent Kane returned to the garage the next morning with a different approach. This time she brought her own vehicle, a black sedan with government plates claiming it needed routine maintenance. Maya agreed to service it, knowing that refusing would raise more suspicions than accepting. As she lifted the hood, she immediately recognized the modifications underneath. The engine had been enhanced with technology that was not quite alien, but definitely not standard government issue. Electromagnetic dampeners, frequency scramblers, and what looked like early attempts at energy shielding. Someone had been trying to reverse engineer the same type of technology Maya had mastered. The difference was that her work was elegant and functional, while this was crude and incomplete. Nice ride, Maya said, checking the oil level. Don't see many of these with aftermarket electronics. Kane watched Maya carefully. Government fleet vehicles. Sometimes they add special communication equipment. Maya nodded as if that explanation made perfect sense while her mind raced through the implications. Kane's team was not just looking for stolen technology. They were using it or trying to. That meant the government had continued their research after Maya's supposed death. It also meant they had probably made contact with the Kethvar again, despite Maya's attempts to sabotage those relationships. While Maya worked on the sedan, Kane asked increasingly specific questions about energy fluctuations and unusual electromagnetic activity. Her questions revealed more knowledge about advanced technology than an environmental agent should possess. Maya answered carefully, maintaining her cover while gathering information about what Kane really knew. You ever work on hybrid vehicles? Kane asked, leaning against the workbench. Sure, when they come through. Not many in Cedar Falls, though. Most folks around here drive trucks and older cars. What about electric conversions? Converting gas engines to electric power? Maya paused in her work. That question was very specific and very telling. Electric conversions were one of the cover stories she had used for her early experiments with alien power sources. If Kane knew about that, she knew more than she was admitting. Done a few over the years, Maya said. Mostly for environmental folks who want to reduce emissions. Pretty expensive conversion, though. Not many people can afford it. Kane made another note in her phone. Where do you source the electrical components for something like that? Depends on the job. Sometimes salvage yards, sometimes specialty suppliers. Why you thinking about converting your government car? Kane smiled, but Maya could see calculation behind her eyes. Just curious about local capabilities. That afternoon, Pete Jackson visited the garage with Maya's afternoon coffee and a worried expression. Pete had been watching the government agents since they arrived, and his Navy training had taught him to recognize certain patterns. The agents were not conducting a routine environmental survey. They were running a military-style intelligence operation. Maya, Pete said quietly, glancing around to make sure they were alone. Those folks asking questions about you specifically. Agent Kane spent an hour at the diner this morning pumping Betty for information about your background. Maya felt her stomach clench. What kind of information? Where you came from, how long you've been here, what kind of work you did before. Betty told her you showed up 5 years ago, said you were from Texas and never talked much about your past. Agent Kane seemed real interested in that timeline. 5 years ago was when Maya had faked her death and disappeared. If Kane was focusing on that specific period, she had probably already connected Maya Rodriguez, the mechanic, with Major Maya Rodriguez, the missing military engineer. The question was whether she could prove it. Anything else? Maya asked. Pete nodded grimly. They've been asking about your technical skills. Want to know if you ever worked on anything more complicated than regular car repairs. Betty mentioned that time you fixed the computer system at the bank when their technician couldn't figure it out. Maya cursed silently. She had forgotten about that incident. The bank's system had been corrupted by a power surge, and Maya had repaired it using techniques that were definitely beyond normal mechanic training. At the time, it had seemed like a harmless favor for a neighbor. Now it was evidence that she possessed advanced technical knowledge. That evening, Maya activated one of her most carefully guarded secrets. Hidden in what appeared to be a normal storage building behind her garage was a vehicle that looked like an ordinary sedan, but could do things that defied the laws of physics as most people understood them. She had built it using Kethvar phase technology combined with human engineering innovations. The sedan could partially shift out of normal space-time, becoming invisible to most forms of detection, while allowing Maya to observe and move freely. It was dangerous technology that she had used only a handful of times, but she needed to know what Kane's team was really doing in Cedar Falls. Maya drove the phase-shifted sedan to the motel, where the government team had established their command post. The vehicle passed through their surveillance perimeter without triggering any alarms because, from their perspective, it was not entirely there. Maya parked in the motel courtyard and listened through the walls using directional microphones that worked even while phased. What she heard made her blood run cold. Kane was not working for any environmental agency. She was part of a joint task force that included both human and alien personnel. The Kethvar had not disappeared after Maya's sabotage. They had simply become more careful about their collaboration with human governments. Kane's team was hunting for Maya specifically because the stolen technology represented a threat to their carefully constructed alliance. But that was not the worst part. Maya listened as Kane received a briefing from someone she called Control. The Kethvar had detected energy signatures consistent with their own technology, but modified in ways they had never seen before. Maya's improvements to their systems had created something new, something that even the original creators did not fully understand. The aliens were afraid of what Maya might have accomplished. Target has successfully integrated our technology with human innovations, Kane reported. Energy output is approximately 30% higher than original specifications. Efficiency curves suggest exponential improvement potential. Control's response was chilling. Containment remains the priority. Technology cannot be allowed to proliferate beyond approved channels. If necessary, implement terminal protocols. Terminal protocols. Maya knew that phrase from her military days. It meant kill the target and destroy all evidence. Kane's team was not just there to retrieve stolen technology. They were there to eliminate Maya and anyone else who might have learned her secrets. Maya phased her vehicle back to normal space-time and drove carefully back to her garage. Her mind raced through options and contingencies. She could run, but that would mean abandoning 5 years of preparation and leaving Earth defenseless against the real threat she knew was coming. She could try to negotiate, but Kane's orders came from people who had already decided Maya was too dangerous to live. The only remaining option was to accelerate her timeline. Maya had planned to have at least another year to complete her preparations, but Kane's arrival changed everything. She would have to move faster and take greater risks. Most importantly, she would need help. Maya climbed the stairs to her apartment and made another secure call. This time she contacted Dr. Linda Hayes, Cedar Falls' only physician, and one of the few people in town with the education to potentially understand what Maya was really doing. "Linda, it's Maya. I need you to come to the garage tonight. Back entrance. There's something I need to show you." Dr. Hayes had always suspected there was more to Maya than met the eye. Maya's knowledge of anatomy and physiology was too detailed for someone with only mechanical training. Her understanding of electronics and engineering was far beyond what a small-town mechanic should possess. Linda had kept her suspicions to herself, but she had been waiting for Maya to trust her with the truth. "Is this about those government people asking questions?" Linda asked. "Yes, and it's about something much bigger than that. Can you come? Give me an hour." While waiting for Dr. Hayes, Maya began activating systems that had been dormant for years. Hidden throughout Cedar Falls were defensive installations that she had built slowly and carefully over 5 years. Energy collectors that looked like cell phone towers, sensor arrays disguised as weather monitoring equipment, weapons platforms hidden in the basements of cooperative business owners who had no idea what they were really storing. Pete Jackson's hardware store was the key to her entire defensive network. The basement contained the main control center for all of Maya's hidden technology. Pete had been told it was emergency backup power equipment for the town's electrical grid. He had been happy to help, especially since Maya paid him well for the storage space and occasionally helped him with complicated electrical repairs. What Pete did not know was that the equipment in his basement could project an energy shield over the entire town, render all electronics within a 5-mile radius inoperable, or generate enough electromagnetic interference to blind satellite surveillance for hundreds of mirai. Agent Kane stared at the computer screen in her motel room, unable to believe what she was seeing. The facial recognition software had finally processed the enhanced images from the garage surveillance, and the results were impossible. Maya Rodriguez, small-town mechanic, was a perfect match for Major Maya Rodriguez, head of the Xenotech Analysis Division, officially killed in action 3 years ago. Kane pulled up the classified file on Major Rodriguez, graduated top of her class from MIT with degrees in mechanical engineering and theoretical physics. Recruited by military intelligence straight out of college. Rapid promotion through increasingly classified projects until she was placed in charge of humanity's most sensitive alien technology research. Then, according to official records, she had died when the primary research facility suffered a catastrophic explosion that destroyed 3 years of work and killed everyone inside. Except Maya Rodriguez was alive and living in Cedar Falls, Montana, working on technology that her own instruments could detect but not identify. Kane reached for her secure communication device to contact control, then hesitated. The implications of this discovery were staggering. If Major Rodriguez had faked her death and stolen alien technology, she was either a traitor of the highest order or someone who had discovered something so dangerous that she felt compelled to go rogue. Kane had worked in intelligence long enough to know that the truth was usually more complicated than official reports suggested. She reviewed the explosion investigation one more time, noting details that had seemed unimportant before. The blast pattern was consistent with a deliberate demolition rather than an accident. Security footage from that day showed Major Rodriguez entering the facility but never leaving, yet no body matching her description had been recovered from the debris. Someone had helped her disappear. Someone with access to classified facilities and the authority to alter official records. Kane began tracing the investigation team that had handled the incident, looking for connections and anomalies. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about her own mission. The lead investigator had been Agent Robert Nash, Kane's current supervisor and the man who had briefed her about the electromagnetic anomalies in Cedar Falls. Nash had personally overseen the evidence collection and body identification process. He had also been the one to classify Major Rodriguez's death as confirmed when the evidence was questionable at best. Kane's hands trembled as she realized the implications. Nash had known exactly who they were looking for when he sent her to Cedar Falls. He had probably known from the beginning that Major Rodriguez was alive. The question was whether Nash was trying to help her or capture her, and whether Kane was part of the operation or just another unwitting tool. A knock at her motel room door interrupted her thoughts. Kane quickly closed the classified files and checked her weapon before answering. Agent Tom Brooks stood in the hallway with an expression of barely controlled excitement. "We've got something," Brooks said. "The electromagnetic reading spiked about an hour ago. Whatever she's hiding, she just turned it on." Kane followed Brooks to the command vehicle parked behind the motel. Inside, banks of monitoring equipment tracked energy signatures across multiple spectrums. The readings were unlike anything Kane had ever seen. Power levels that should have required a nuclear reactor were being generated by something small enough to hide in a garage. "Source location?" Kane asked. "That's the weird part," said Agent Sarah Miller, their technical specialist. "The energy is coming from multiple points throughout the town. At least 6 different locations, all coordinated, all using the same base frequency." Kane studied the tactical display showing Cedar Falls with energy sources marked in red. The pattern was clearly intentional, designed to provide overlapping coverage of the entire town. It was a defensive network, and it was far more sophisticated than anything they had expected to find. "She's not just hiding stolen technology," Kane realized. "She's built an entire installation here." Her secure phone buzzed with an incoming call from control. Kane hesitated for a moment before answering, unsure whether she was reporting to an ally or an enemy. "Report," came Nash's familiar voice. "Target identified as Major Maya Rodriguez, presumed KIA 3 years ago. She's constructed what appears to be a significant technological installation throughout the town of Cedar Falls. Energy signatures suggest weapons-grade capabilities." There was a long pause before Nash responded. "Understood. Implement containment protocols immediately. No survivors, no witnesses." Kane felt her blood turn cold. "Sir, the town has over 3,000 civilians. Surely we can find a more surgical approach. The technology she's stolen represents an existential threat to national security. The risk of proliferation outweighs collateral damage considerations." "You have your orders, Agent Kane." The line went dead. Kane stared at the phone, finally understanding the true nature of her mission. Nash was not trying to recover stolen technology for the good of humanity. He was trying to cover up the fact that he had lost control of it. The civilians of Cedar Falls were about to become casualties in a war they did not even know existed. Kane looked at her team, all of whom had heard Nash's orders through the command vehicle's communication system. Brooks and Miller were experienced agents, but they had signed up to protect their country, not massacre innocent civilians. Their expressions showed the same horror and confusion that Kane felt. "Agent Kane," Miller said quietly, "those energy readings, I've been studying them for the past hour. They're not weapon signatures. They're defensive systems. Someone is trying to protect this town, not threaten it." Kane made a decision that would change everything. Instead of implementing Nash's containment protocols, she decided to confront Maya Rodriguez directly. If the Major was really a traitor, Kane would find out why. If she was trying to protect something, Kane needed to know what that something was. An hour later, Kane stood outside Maya's garage with her hand on her weapon, but no intention of using it unless forced to. She had come alone, leaving her team at the motel with orders to monitor communications but take no action without her direct command. The garage door was closed, but she could see light coming from underneath it. "Major Rodriguez," Kane called out. "I know who you are. We need to talk." The light under the door went out. Kane waited, counting the seconds, knowing that Maya had probably detected her approach long before she announced herself. After what felt like an eternity, the garage door rolled up with a mechanical whir. Maya stood in the doorway, no longer pretending to be just a small-town mechanic. Her posture was military, her eyes alert and calculating. She wore the same coveralls, but now they looked like a uniform. The transformation was remarkable. "Agent Kane," Maya said, "I wondered when you would figure it out. Come in, but come alone." Kane stepped into the garage, noting that it looked completely different from her previous visit. Equipment that had been hidden was now visible. Displays showed tactical information and energy readings. The space hummed with barely contained power. Impressive installation, Kane said. Your superiors always said you were the best. Maya smiled grimly. My superiors also said a lot of things that turned out to be lies. What does Nash want, Agent Kane? And more importantly, what do you want? Nash wants you dead and this place destroyed. He gave me orders to implement terminal protocols for the entire town. Maya's expression hardened. And you? Kane holstered her weapon and raised her hands to show they were empty. I want to know why the head of our most classified research division faked her death and built a secret installation in Montana. I want to know what you discovered that made you think it was worth betraying everything you swore to protect. Maya studied Kane for a long moment, then walked to one of her displays and activated a holographic projection. The image showed Earth from space, surrounded by what looked like a fleet of alien vessels. 3 years ago, I discovered that the Kethvar have been lying to us about why they came to Earth. They're not just refugees seeking sanctuary. They're the advanced scouts for an invasion force that makes their own fleet look like a toy. The Zerathi Empire follows conquered species across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The Kethvar led them straight to us. Kane stared at the projection, her training helping her process the strategic implications. When? Based on the data I recovered, less than 6 months. The Zerathi move slowly because they're thorough. They analyze their targets completely before attacking. But when they come, they don't leave anything behind. And Nash knows about this? Maya nodded. Nash and others like him have made deals with the Kethvar. Technology and resources in exchange for a place in the new order after Earth is conquered. They think they can survive by collaborating with the invaders. Kane felt sick as the pieces fell into place. That's why he wants you eliminated. You're not just a security threat. You're the only one working on a real defense. The technology I've developed here combines human innovation with Kethvar science in ways that neither species thought possible. It's our only chance against the Zerathi, but Nash and his collaborators would rather maintain their illusion of control than admit they've been betrayed. Before Kane could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the garage. Maya rushed to her monitoring station and cursed under her Maya's monitoring equipment, screamed with alerts as more energy signatures appeared on the edge of the solar system. The Zerathi advance fleet was larger than she had calculated. What she had thought would be a scouting force looked more like a full invasion armada. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than anything Earth had ever built, moving with the inexorable patience of apex predators. How many? Kane asked, studying the tactical display. At least 300 capital ships, maybe twice that number of escorts. Enough firepower to sterilize every planet in the solar system. Maya pulled up historical data from the Kethvar archives. This is what happened to their home worlds. The Zerathi don't just conquer civilizations, they consume them completely, strip the planets bare, harvest every useful resource, then move on to the next target. Kane felt a chill as she watched the alien fleet's methodical approach. The ships were not rushing toward Earth. They were taking their time, studying, analyzing, preparing for a harvest rather than a battle. What's their timeline? Maya ran calculations on her tactical computer. 68 hours until they reach Earth orbit. Another 12 hours to position themselves for planetary bombardment. But they won't start with bombardment. First, they'll send down collection ships to gather samples and intelligence. They want to know exactly what they're harvesting before they begin. The garage door opened and Pete Jackson entered, followed by Dr. Hayes. Both looked shaken but determined. Pete carried a military-style radio that Maya recognized as surplus equipment from his Navy days. Maya, Pete said, we've got problems. My old radio picked up some kind of transmission about an hour ago. Sounded like coordinates and attack vectors. Then everything went quiet. Dr. Hayes held up her medical scanner, which Maya had modified with Kethvar sensors. I've been monitoring the town like you asked. Energy readings are spiking everywhere. Whatever you built here, it's all activating at once. Maya nodded grimly. The approach of the Zerathi fleet triggered automatic defensive protocols. Every system I've installed over the past 5 years is coming online simultaneously. She led them to the main display and showed them the tactical situation. Pete's Navy training let him interpret the strategic picture immediately. His face went pale as he realized the scale of what they were facing. Jesus, Maya, that's an entire battle fleet. What happened to the regular military? Where are our ships? Probably being betrayed by their own commanders, Kane said bitterly. Agent Nash and others like him have been working with the Kethvar for years. They think they can survive the invasion by cooperating with it. Maya activated another display showing energy signatures from around the globe. It's worse than that. The Kethvar have been installing their own technology in key military installations worldwide. They told human governments it was defensive systems to protect against invasion. In reality, they're signal beacons that will guide Zerathi collection ships to the most valuable targets. Dr. Hayes studied the global display with growing horror. Military bases, research facilities, population centers. They're targeting everything that makes human civilization valuable. Exactly. The Zerathi have done this before. The Kethavar survived their own planet's conquest by becoming collaborators. Now they're doing the same thing to Earth. And people like Nash are helping them. Pete walked to the window and looked out at the peaceful streets of Cedar Falls. Children were riding bicycles. Mrs. Chen was watering her garden. Deputy Murphy was making his afternoon rounds. None of them had any idea that their world was about to end. How many people know the truth? Pete asked. Maya's expression was grim. Maybe a few dozen worldwide. Most of the people who had access to the real intelligence have either been eliminated or recruited as collaborators. The rest think they're preparing for a completely different kind of threat. Kane's secure phone buzzed with an incoming message from Nash. She read it quickly, then showed it to Maya. He's ordering immediate termination of the mission. Wants me to withdraw my team and leave Cedar Falls to be handled by a cleanup crew. Which means he knows the Zerathi are coming and wants to eliminate any potential resistance before they arrive, Maya said. Nash isn't just a collaborator anymore. He's actively working for the enemy. Dr. Hayes had been quiet, studying the medical implications of the data Maya had shown them. Now she spoke up with a question that chilled everyone in the room. Maya, what happened to the people on the Kethvar worlds? The ones who weren't useful to the Zerathi? Maya hesitated, then activated a historical file from the alien archives. The images were almost too horrific to comprehend. Entire continents stripped of all organic matter. Cities reduced to their component atoms. Oceans boiled away, leaving nothing but bare rock and metal. The Zerathi don't take prisoners. They don't establish colonies. They consume everything that has value and leave behind dead worlds. The only Kethavar who survived were the ones aboard ships when their planets were harvested. Everyone else is gone. Pete turned away from the window, his Navy training helping him focus on practical considerations rather than the enormity of the threat. What's our tactical situation? What kind of defenses do we actually have? Maya led them to the basement workshop where her most advanced equipment was hidden. The space was larger than it appeared from above, extending deep underground and connecting to similar installations throughout the town. Banks of computers processed information faster than human minds could follow. Energy cores that looked like crystalline sculptures pulsed with barely contained power. The town of Cedar Falls sits on a natural convergence point where magnetic fields intersect in unusual ways, Maya explained. This amplifies certain types of energy transmission. The Kethavar technology works better here than almost anywhere else on Earth. She showed them the defensive systems she had built over 5 years of careful preparation. Energy shields that could protect the entire town from orbital bombardment. Sensor arrays that could track ships across interplanetary distances. Weapons platforms hidden throughout Cedar Falls that could destroy targets in orbit. This is incredible, Kane said, studying the tactical displays. You've turned the whole town into a fortress. More than that, Cedar Falls is the prototype for a planetary defense network that could protect all of Earth. But I need time to complete the installation. And time is the one thing we don't have. Dr. Hayes was examining the medical stations Maya had built into the defensive network. You've thought of everything. Automated surgical units, pharmaceutical synthesizers, even genetic repair systems. This could revolutionize medicine. Maya nodded. The Kethvar medical technology is centuries ahead of ours. Combined with human innovation, it could eliminate most diseases and extend human lifespan significantly. But only if we survive the next 72 hours. Pete had found the communication center and was studying the equipment with professional interest. Maya, this setup could reach anywhere on Earth, maybe anywhere in the solar system. Have you been in contact with other resistance cells? There are a few groups working on similar projects, but most of them don't know about each other. I've been coordinating through coded transmissions and dead drops. The problem is that every major government has been infiltrated. We can't trust official channels. Kane was studying the timeline projections on Maya's main display. 66 hours until the Zerathi reach Earth orbit. How long would it take to complete your planetary defense network? At least a month, probably longer. I'd need to install convergence points at key locations around the globe, then link them into a unified grid. It's technically possible, but we don't have the time. What if we had help? Dr. Hayes asked. What if we could recruit more people who understand the technology? Maya shook her head. The learning curve is too steep. It took me 3 years to master the basics of Kethvar science, and I had access to their complete archives. Anyone starting from scratch would need at least 6 months just to understand the fundamentals. Pete looked up from the communication equipment with a thoughtful expression. What about people who already have technical training? Military engineers? Research scientists? People who work with advanced systems? Maybe, Maya admitted. But how do we find them? And more importantly, how do we convince them that we're telling the truth about an alien invasion without sounding completely insane? Kane smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I still have contacts in the intelligence community who haven't been compromised. People who've been asking the same questions I was asking. If I can reach them, we might be able to build a resistance network fast enough to make a difference. Maya studied the tactical display again, running calculations in her head. Even if we could recruit help, we'd still need massive resources. Rare earth elements, fabrication facilities, transportation networks, the kind of infrastructure that only governments control. Then we take it, Pete said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the, elderly hardware store owner, who had just suggested overthrowing the United States government. Pete met their stares with the calm expression of someone who had served in the Navy during some of the most dangerous missions of the Cold War. I didn't survive 40 years of military service. Maya spread tactical maps across her workbench while Kane established secure communications with her remaining trusted contacts. The plan they were developing was ambitious beyond anything attempted in human history. Convert ordinary vehicles and equipment into hybrid war machines using alien technology, then coordinate a global resistance using Cedar Falls as the command center. The key advantage we have is surprise, Maya explained to the group. Nash and the other collaborators think they've eliminated all serious resistance. They're not expecting coordinated opposition, especially not using technology they've never seen before. Pete had taken charge of logistics, using his decades of experience managing supply chains for the hardware store. We'll need to move fast and stay ahead of government tracking. Once we start converting vehicles, they'll detect the energy signatures. We'll have maybe 12 hours before they send everything they have to stop us. Dr. Hayes was studying the medical applications of the Kethvar technology, learning how to safely integrate alien systems with human biology. Maya. This neural interface technology could let people control the hybrid vehicles directly through thought. The response time would be incredible. Too dangerous, Maya said immediately. The Kethvar neural patterns are different from human ones. Direct interface could cause permanent brain damage or death. What if we modify the interface? Dr. Hayes persisted. Adapt it for human neural structure? I understand brain anatomy better than anyone in town. Maya considered the idea while monitoring reports from Kane's intelligence contacts. The concept was theoretically possible, but the risks were enormous. On the other hand, they needed every advantage they could get against the Zerathi. We can try it on a limited basis, Maya decided, but only with volunteers who fully understand the risks, and only after we've established basic defenses. Kane finished her secure communications and rejoined the group. I've made contact with resistance cells in 6 major cities. They're small groups, mostly military and intelligence personnel who've been asking uncomfortable questions about official policies. They're willing to help, but they need proof that the threat is real. How do we provide proof without revealing our location? Pete asked. Maya activated her long-range sensors and targeted them toward the edge of the solar system. The images that appeared on her displays were unmistakably alien, massive ships with hull configurations that followed no human design principles, moving in formation patterns that spoke of military precision. Send them this, Maya said. Real-time imagery of the Zerathi fleet. That should convince anyone who isn't already compromised. Within hours, Kane's network had grown from 6 contacts to over 40, military engineers who had been suspicious of the alien technology being installed at their bases. Research scientists who had noticed inconsistencies in official reports about extraterrestrial contact. Intelligence analysts who had tracked too many missing persons cases connected to classified projects. The most valuable recruit was Colonel Frank Miller, Sarah Miller's father and commander of a National Guard engineering unit based in Colorado. Colonel Miller had been questioning orders to install Kethvar technology at military installations across the western United States. When he learned the truth about the impending invasion, he immediately pledged his entire unit to the resistance. 200 trained engineers, Kane reported after speaking with Colonel Miller. They have access to fabrication equipment, transportation assets, and weapons stockpiles. Most importantly, they know how to follow orders without asking questions that might compromise security. Maya began developing conversion protocols that could turn ordinary military vehicles into hybrid war machines. The process was complex but not impossible. Kethvar energy cores could be installed in place of conventional engines. Shield generators could be integrated into armor plating. Weapon systems could be enhanced with alien targeting and firing control. The first test came when Pete's nephew, Danny, arrived from Billings driving a delivery truck loaded with supposedly routine hardware supplies. Danny was actually a former Army mechanic who had volunteered to test Maya's conversion process. What looked like plumbing fixtures and electrical components were actually Kethvar technology components that Maya had been accumulating for years. Maya spent 6 hours converting Danny's truck in her garage. When she finished, the vehicle looked exactly the same from the outside. Inside, however, it now possessed capabilities that defied conventional physics. The engine could generate enough power to supply a small city. The chassis could withstand direct hits from tank cannons. The truck could even phase partially out of normal space-time for short periods, making it nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Danny's test drive through the mountains around Cedar Falls revealed both the potential and the dangers of the technology. The truck performed flawlessly, responding to his thoughts as much as his physical controls. But the neural interface caused severe headaches and disorientation. Dr. Hayes realized they would need to develop better buffering systems before the technology could be used safely by untrained operators. Meanwhile, Kane's intelligence network brought disturbing news from around the world. Military units that had questioned orders were being reassigned or eliminated. Research facilities that had shown signs of resistance were being shut down under security pretexts. The collaborators were systematically removing anyone who might oppose the coming invasion. They're accelerating their timeline, Kane reported. Nash has issued termination orders for over 300 military and intelligence personnel. Anyone who might have the knowledge and resources to organize effective resistance. Maya studied the global situation and made a difficult decision. We can't wait for the conversion program to be perfected. We need to start distributing the technology now, before they eliminate all our potential allies. Over the next 24 hours, Maya's garage became the center of a desperate manufacturing effort. Pete coordinated shipments of disguised components to resistance cells across North America. Dr. Hayes developed crash courses in alien technology that could be transmitted digitally to qualified personnel. Kane maintained communications with growing networks of resistance fighters while staying ahead of government tracking efforts. The breakthrough came when Colonel Miller's engineering unit successfully converted their first batch of vehicles using Maya's transmitted instructions. 12 Humvees, 6 trucks, and 2 helicopters were transformed into hybrid war machines in less than 8 hours. The Colonel's engineers, trained in rapid deployment and field improvisation, proved remarkably adept at adapting alien technology to human equipment. It works, Kane announced after receiving Colonel Miller's report. They've got operational hybrid vehicles and no casualties from the conversion process. Request permission to begin full-scale production. Maya authorized the expansion while monitoring increasingly urgent alerts from her sensor arrays. The Zarathi fleet was accelerating its approach. What had been a 68-hour timeline was now down to 43 hours. Worse, long-range scans detected smaller ships separating from the main fleet and moving ahead of the invasion force. Scout ships, Maya identified. They're going to survey key targets before the main fleet arrives. That gives us maybe 18 hours before Earth comes under direct observation. Dr. Hayes had been working on the neural interface problem and finally achieved a breakthrough. By combining Kethvar technology with human medical knowledge, she developed a buffering system that allowed safe human-alien integration. The first successful test subject was Sheriff Jack Murphy, who volunteered to try the enhanced interface in his converted patrol car. Murphy's test run was remarkable. The neural connection allowed him to control the vehicle with unprecedented precision while maintaining full human consciousness. The car responded to his intentions as naturally as his own body, giving him capabilities that no human pilot had ever possessed. "It's like the car is part of me," Murphy reported. "I can feel the road, the air currents, even the electromagnetic fields around other vehicles. And the weapon systems. Maya, this thing could take out a tank without breaking a sweat." The success with the neural interface opened new possibilities for rapid training and deployment. Personnel who would normally need months to learn alien technology could now be integrated with hybrid systems in a matter of hours. Maya began transmitting the interface protocols to resistance cells worldwide. By the end of the second day, the resistance had grown from a handful of people in Cedar Falls to over 2,000 trained personnel, operating hybrid vehicles across 6 continents. Military engineers in Australia had converted an entire armored division. Research scientists in Japan had transformed a fleet of experimental aircraft. Even civilian mechanics in remote locations had successfully integrated alien technology into ordinary cars and trucks. But the collaborators were not sitting idle. Nash had identified the source of the resistance and was mobilizing everything at his disposal to crush it. Satellite surveillance detected energy signatures from hybrid vehicles worldwide. Military units that had not been converted began moving to intercept resistance cells. Government forces loyal to the collaborators were preparing for civil war. "We've got incoming," Pete announced from his monitorings. The first wave of government aircraft appeared on Maya's sensors at exactly 2:47 p.m., approaching Cedar Falls from 3 directions in perfect military formation. 12 F-16 fighters, 6 Apache helicopters, and what looked like a modified transport plane carrying specialized equipment. Maya recognized the energy signatures immediately. Nash had equipped his forces with captured Kethvar technology. "They're using our own tech against us," Pete observed grimly, watching the tactical display from his position at the communication center. "Those fighters have been modified with alien shielding and weapon systems." Maya activated Cedar Falls's defensive grid, and the peaceful Montana town transformed into something that belonged on a distant battlefield. Energy shields shimmered into existence over every building. Hidden weapons platforms rose from concealed positions throughout the residential areas. The grain elevator revealed itself to be a massive sensor array and command center. "Citizens of Cedar Falls, this is Sheriff Murphy," came the announcement over the town's emergency broadcast system. "Please remain in your homes and away from windows. This is not a drill. We are under attack by hostile forces, but our defenses are in place." Dr. Hayes had established her medical center in the basement of the hospital, where Maya's technology could create sterile fields and provide surgical capabilities beyond anything available on Earth. "Medical stations are operational," she reported, "though I hope we won't need them." The government forces opened fire as soon as they detected the energy shields, but their weapons had no effect. Maya's defensive systems absorbed the incoming fire and actually grew stronger from the energy input. It was the first demonstration of a principle that would prove crucial. Human modifications to Kethvar technology often exceeded the original specifications. "Impossible," Kane muttered, watching the tactical display. "Those are military-grade weapons. They should be able to penetrate any known shielding." Maya smiled grimly. The Kethvar designed their shields to stop Kethvar weapons. They never imagined someone would improve their technology by combining it with human engineering principles. "We've created something neither species could build alone." The government aircraft regrouped and tried a different approach, attempting to land ground forces in the field surrounding Cedar Falls. But Maya had prepared for that possibility too. Hidden automated defense systems emerged from the wheat fields, disguised as irrigation equipment. What the pilots thought would be an easy landing became a deadly gauntlet of energy weapons and guided projectiles. Sheriff Murphy launched his converted patrol car into the battle, and the results were spectacular. The neural interface allowed him to pilot the vehicle with inhuman precision, while the hybrid technology gave him capabilities that defied physics. He could phase through solid matter to avoid incoming fire, then rematerialize to attack from unexpected angles. His weapons could punch through military armor like it was paper. "This is incredible," Murphy reported over the communication network. "I can see everything, feel everything. It's like the whole battlefield is part of my nervous system." But the government forces had advantages of their own. The transport plane deployed what Maya recognized as a Kethvar signal jammer, designed to disrupt the neural interfaces that connected human operators to their hybrid vehicles. The alien technology was sophisticated, but Maya had been preparing for this possibility. Activating backup protocols, she announced, switching to hardened communication systems that used quantum entanglement principles. They can jam our radio frequencies, but they can't interfere with quantum states. The battle raged for 2 hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The government forces had superior numbers and training, but Maya's defenses were too strong to break through conventional assault. The stalemate might have continued indefinitely, except for 2 developments that changed everything. First, Colonel Miller's National Guard unit arrived from Colorado with a convoy of converted vehicles. 60 hybrid war machines approached Cedar Falls from the south, moving faster than anything the government forces had ever seen. The colonel's engineers had not just followed Maya's conversion protocols, they had improved them, creating vehicles that were even more advanced than her prototypes. Second, and more ominously, Maya's long-range sensors detected new contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. The Zarathi scout ships had arrived ahead of schedule, and they were already beginning their survey of Earth. Colonel Miller, "This is Maya Rodriguez," she transmitted to the approaching National Guard convoy. "Zarathi scouts are in system. We need to end this engagement and focus on the real threat." Miller's response was immediate and decisive. "Understood, Major. Implementing breakthrough protocol." The National Guard hybrid vehicle smashed through the government forces' rear positions like a thunderbolt. Military equipment that had seemed invincible moments before was swept aside by technology that operated according to entirely new physical principles. The F-16 fighters, designed for air superiority, found themselves outmaneuvered by converted Humvees that could fly and phase through solid matter simultaneously. Nash's forces, faced with the collapse of their carefully planned assault, attempted one final desperate gambit. The transport plane released what Maya's sensors identified as a Kethvar planet-killer device, a weapon designed to sterilize large areas by destabilizing atomic bonds. "Everyone take cover," Maya shouted. But she knew the town's shields could not stop a weapon of that magnitude. The planet killer would destroy Cedar Falls and everyone in it, eliminating the Resistance's command center just as the real invasion began. Pete Jackson, however, had other ideas. The 72-year-old hardware store owner climbed into a converted pickup truck and activated its phase drive, piloting the vehicle directly toward the falling weapon. His Navy training and lifetime of mechanical experience guided him as he used the truck's hybrid systems in a way even Maya had not considered possible. Instead of trying to destroy the planet killer, Pete phased his truck to the same quantum frequency as the weapon and grabbed it with magnetic clamps. Then he phased both the truck and the weapon partially out of normal space-time and flew them high into the atmosphere, where the device detonated harmlessly above the stratosphere. Pete's sacrifice saved Cedar Falls, but the cost was enormous. The explosion destroyed his truck and created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled communications across half of Montana. When the interference cleared, there was no sign of Pete or his vehicle. "He's gone," Dr. Hayes reported quietly, monitoring for any trace of Pete's life signs. The explosion vaporized everything within a 50-mile radius of the detonation point. Maya felt tears in her eyes as she realized that Pete had saved not just Cedar Falls, but possibly the entire planet. The planet-killer device would have created a chain reaction that could have sterilized half of North America. His sacrifice had prevented a catastrophe that would have left Earth defenseless against the Zarathi. The surviving government forces, witnessing the destruction of their ultimate weapon and the arrival of Colonel Miller's hybrid convoy, finally understood that they were fighting on the wrong side. Agent Brooks and Agent Miller, Kane's former teammates, approached the town under a white flag. "Agent Kane," Brooks transmitted, "we've been monitoring Zarathi communications. Nash has been in direct contact with them for months. He's been feeding them intelligence about human military capabilities and population centers." Kane's face hardened with anger. "Where is Nash now?" "Underground bunker in Colorado Springs. He's got 100 collaborators with him, all equipped with Kethvar technology. They think they can ride out the invasion and emerge as local governors under Zarathi rule." Maya studied the tactical situation while coordinating with resistance cells worldwide. The Zarathi scouts were conducting systematic surveys of major population centers, obviously preparing target lists for the main fleet. They had 36 hours before the invasion began in earnest, but something unexpected was happening. As word of the Battle of Cedar Falls spread through Maya's resistance network, military units around the world began openly defying orders from compromised commanders. The sight of hybrid vehicles defeating conventional forces had proven that effective resistance was possible. Soldiers who had been told to cooperate with the invasion began demanding answers about the alien technology they had been ordered to install. "We're getting reports from everywhere," Kane announced. "Base commanders in Germany are arresting their own intelligence officers. The Australian Defence Force has seized control of all Kethvar installations. Even the Chinese military is moving against their collaborator elements." Maya realized that the Battle of Cedar Falls had accomplished something more important than a local victory. It had demonstrated that human technology enhanced with alien science could defeat anything the enemy could deploy. More importantly, it had shown that ordinary people, mechanics, doctors, hardware store owners, could master advanced technology and use it to defend their world. Dr. Hayes looked up from her medical station with a grim expression. "Maya, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the Zarathi scouts. They're preparation. 3 squadrons of military, The Zarathi fleet dropped out of hyperspace at exactly 6:23 a.m. Montana time, filling Earth's orbital space with ships that dwarfed anything in human imagination. Maya watched from Cedar Falls as her sensors tracked over 800 capital vessels, each one the size of a small city. Their weapons could crack continents. Their shields could deflect nuclear weapons. For over a century, they had been unstoppable. But Maya Rodriguez had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, and she had learned something the Zarathi had never encountered before. Human beings did not just use technology, they improved it, adapted it, and combined it in ways that even its creators never imagined. All resistance units. This is Cedar Falls Command. Maya broadcast to hybrid forces worldwide. Execute Phase 1 of planetary defense. Show them what human ingenuity can accomplish. Around the globe, nearly 3,000 hybrid vehicles activated simultaneously. What the Zarathi expected to be a routine planetary survey became something unprecedented in their long history of conquest. Earth's defenders were not using recognizable Kethvar technology or standard human weapons. They were using something entirely new. Colonel Miller's engineering unit struck first, launching converted aircraft from hidden airfields across the American West. What looked like ordinary cargo planes and crop dusters rose into the stratosphere and engaged Zarathi scout ships on equal terms. The aliens' energy weapons, designed to overwhelm Kethvar shielding, proved ineffective against hybrid defenses that operated on principles neither species had ever encountered. The key breakthrough was Maya's discovery that human intuition could push alien technology beyond its original limitations. Where Kethvar engineers followed rigid design protocols, human mechanics improvised and experimented. The result was hybrid systems that exceeded the performance of their components by orders of magnitude. Sheriff Murphy's patrol car, now modified for orbital combat, phased through a Zarathi destroyer's shields and delivered a payload that destabilized the ship's power core. The massive vessel, designed to bombard planets into submission, was destroyed by what appeared to be a small-town police vehicle. Similar impossible victories occurred worldwide as hybrid forces engaged the invasion fleet. Dr. Hayes coordinated medical support from Cedar Falls while monitoring the neural interfaces that connected human pilots to their hybrid vehicles. The technology that had started as dangerous experimentation had evolved into seamless human-alien integration. Pilots reported enhanced reflexes, expanded sensory awareness, and tactical insights that seemed to come from the machines themselves. "It's like the technology wants to help us," reported Captain Lisa Chen, piloting a converted helicopter against Zarathi atmospheric processors above Los Angeles. "The systems are anticipating my needs and suggesting tactics I never would have considered." Maya realized that something unprecedented was happening. The hybrid technology was not just combining human and alien capabilities, it was evolving, becoming something greater than either species could achieve alone. The neural interfaces were creating a form of technological symbiosis that enhanced both human intuition and alien computational power. The Zarathi, faced with unexpected resistance, deployed their planet-killer weapons. Massive orbital platforms began charging energy beams designed to sterilize Earth's surface. But Maya had prepared for this possibility. With her most ambitious creation, a planetary defense grid that could protect the entire world. Hidden installations in major cities worldwide activated simultaneously, creating an interconnected network of energy shields and defensive systems. The technology was based on Kethvar principles, but enhanced with human engineering innovations that made it far more powerful than the original alien systems. Planetary defense grid is operational, announced Resistance. Coordinators from London, Tokyo, Sydney, and dozens of other cities. All population centers are protected, ready to engage orbital targets. The Zarathi planet killer beam struck Earth's shields and simply vanished, absorbed by defensive systems that converted the incoming energy into power for the Resistance network. What should have been humanity's extinction became a massive transfer of alien energy that strengthened Earth's defenses. Maya's ultimate creation was a hybrid fighter craft, built from an old crop duster, that Pete had helped her modify months before his sacrifice. The plane looked harmless, even ridiculous, but it contained the most advanced technology ever assembled on Earth. Maya climbed into the cockpit and activated the neural interface, feeling the aircraft become an extension of her own consciousness. The crop duster rose from Cedar Falls and streaked toward orbit faster than any human-built vehicle had ever traveled. Maya's enhanced senses tracked the Zarathi mothership, a vessel the size of Manhattan that served as the command center for the entire invasion fleet. If she could destroy it, the other ships would lose coordination and become vulnerable to the global resistance network. The mothership's defenses were formidable, but Maya had advantages the Zarathi could not understand. Her hybrid technology allowed her to phase between dimensions, making her nearly impossible to target. Her weapon systems combined Kethvar energy projection with human, targeting algorithms that could predict enemy movements with supernatural accuracy. Maya dove through the mothership's defensive screen like a meteor, her crop duster's impossible capabilities carrying her past weapons that could have destroyed planets. She reached the ship's central command core and delivered a payload that Pete had designed. In his final hours, a quantum cascade device that would turn the Zarathi's own technology against them. The explosion that followed was visible from Earth's surface, a new star that blazed for several minutes before fading. The Zarathi mothership, along with its command staff and control systems, simply ceased to exist. Without central coordination, the invasion fleet found itself facing a planet that fought back with technology they could not comprehend. One by one, Zarathi ships began withdrawing from Earth orbit. Some were destroyed by hybrid fighters that seemed to phase in and out of reality. Others were disabled by weapons that targeted their power cores with impossible precision. The survivors retreated toward the edge of the solar system, sending urgent transmissions to their empire about a species that had somehow transcended the normal limitations of galactic civilization. Dr. Hayes established communication with the retreating Zarathi fleet and delivered a message that would echo across the galaxy. This is Dr. Linda Hayes speaking for the people of Earth. Your invasion has failed. Your technology has been surpassed. Humanity is not a species to be conquered or harvested. We are partners and innovators who can take any technology and improve it beyond recognition. The Zarathi response was immediate withdrawal. For the first time in their imperial history, they had encountered a species that could match their capabilities and exceed them. Earth was classified as a protected world, too dangerous to approach and too valuable to destroy. In the months that followed, Maya's garage in Cedar Falls became the headquarters for humanity's expansion into space. The hybrid technology that had saved Earth from conquest became the foundation for exploration vessels that could travel between stars. Cedar Falls, population 3 out of 200, found itself at the center of a new age of human achievement. Maya continued her work, no longer in secret but as the acknowledged leader of humanity's technological revolution. The black SUVs that had once surrounded her garage were replaced by vehicles that looked ordinary, but could travel to distant galaxies. Pete Jackson was memorialized with a statue in the town square, honoring the hardware store owner who had saved the world. Agent Kane became Maya's deputy, coordinating with former resistance cells that had transformed into exploration teams and diplomatic missions. Dr. Hayes established medical centers worldwide that used hybrid technology to eliminate disease and extend human lifespan. Sheriff Murphy led the first human mission to make contact with other species, his patrol car modified for interstellar travel. The Kethvar, learning of humanity's victory over the Zerathi, approached Earth as supplicants rather than collaborators. They had spent centuries running from the Zerathi Empire, never imagining that any species could defeat them in open combat. Humanity offered them sanctuary and partnership, sharing the hybrid technology that had made victory possible. But Maya's greatest achievement was not the defeat of the Zerathi or the development of interstellar travel. It was the proof that human ingenuity could take any limitation and transform it into an opportunity. The small-town mechanic who had once hidden dangerous secrets in her garage had revealed humanity's greatest secret, their ability to transcend any boundary through innovation and determination. Earth became known throughout the galaxy as the world where impossible things happened routinely, where a species had taken alien technology and improved it beyond its creator's wildest dreams. And in Cedar Falls, Montana, Maya Rodriguez continued her work, knowing that every problem was just another puzzle waiting for a human solution. The dangerous secret she had concealed was no longer hidden. It had become humanity's gift to the galaxy.